Hey, Kyle, today let's talk about consistency, curiosity, and consideration.
Let's do it. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. We are back. And I'm excited. I really am, because there are some amazing things coming down the pipeline. There's some amazing things that are happening right now as we speak. And as you're watching this episode, we are curating an ecosystem of phenomenal social impact leaders from literally around the world to convene in one location, but then multiple locations all around the world. And it's like, what does that even mean, Kyle? What I mean is that we have the Contagious Culture Conference. The Contagious Culture Conference, October 15th and 16th, 2026. We're going virtual, y'all. We're going to be virtual. We're going to be in person. We're going to have amazing events happening. And I mean some power names. We're going to have Lindsay Fuller. We're going to have Naomi Hathaway. We're going to have Angela Howard. We're going to have John McCoy. We're going to have some heavy hitters in the social impact space. And we're going to have Colin Dan. So it's like the icing of the cake. And if this is your first episode, look, our goal here is to help you create ecosystems and environments for people and your teams to thrive. We're going to give you the practical, we're going to give you the theory, but we're going to be able to give you actionable steps and takeaways that you can take literally once you get off this call and implement on a day-to-day basis. We were on a call this morning with a executive director based in Charlotte, North Carolina, doing great work, but no strategy. And I asked towards the end of the conversation, I was like, well, how can I support the organization? Or I asked, what does the organization need? And he was like, we're not going after money. We're good right now. We're under a year starting our organization. So we're not focusing on money. We're focusing on impact. And through his soliloquy that completely confused me, Dan, completely confused, I asked a more direct question. What does partnership look like with your organization? Because you've mentioned partnership. You want just partners. You want partners. But what does partnering with your organization, my friend, look like? And then the crickets started cricketing. I don't know the actual sound that they started cricketing.
Yeah, that works.
That works. And what we want you to understand at the beginning of this conversation, and we're going to give you 3 C's to be able to consider, to be curious, and to be consistent. We're going to talk about those. But what we want you to understand, as an executive leader, first, you have to have an executive posture. You have to have a posture that you know what you're doing. You are clear with who you're talking to on the phone, because if this person did their research on me, then they know I'm well connected, have access to corporations, have access to other nonprofits that they can collaborate with. So you always have to have your ask readily available. Because when they ask me, because I do this work, how can I support you? I said, can you connect me with 3 or 5 nonprofit organizational leaders in your world and connect us on LinkedIn today or via email today? I was clear on my ask. I was clear on my who. I was clear on my timeline. And I was clear on the way that they were supposed to get in contact with me. Why is this important? This is important because people, especially in leadership positions, are talking to a lot of people in the course of the week. Dan, we collectively have what, maybe 50 meetings, 50 different people that we're talking to a week.
Oh, yeah.
We have to be more intentional with our ask. We have to be more intentional with how we're supporting organizations, or how we actually need, or our ask, or our case of support. And as we transition this conversation, this is what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to pass it to Dan. Support is more than money, people. Supporting an organization is much more than just giving that organization money. Support may look like giving that organization some advice, as I did towards the end of the call. Like, look, I want you to approach this differently next time. I need you to identify either relationships, reach, revenue, like opportunities where you can partner with people that are more targeted and intentional and always have your ass ready. That is the way that I supported the organization without having to give them any money. Number 2 is partnership. Connect them or collaborate with them on a series. This individual wanted a leadership series, so I connected them with three other organizations that have access to people, speakers, and students that their series would benefit from. Partnership. Number 3 is relationship. How can you connect this individual or this organization with someone else that may advance their mission forward? Strategy. Provide somebody some free game or some advice or something that can move their needle forward. And then volunteering, service. How can you serve with organizations so that you can enhance and evolve their mission?
Mm-hmm.
Dan, talk to us.
Man, I really like that. I think as we look at consistency, curiosity, and consideration, I think that can play into our conversation with Amy today at the Innovation Barn.
Yep.
Right? We and a perfect example was the end of the call. You and I are on the same wavelength always. You were curious. We had talked about how do we do something there? Yep. How do we do something with their coffee shop? What does that look like in there? Can we have a workshop for Charlotte nonprofits for free for them to come twice a month to come listen to it and gain some knowledge? And you said, hey, Amy, what would it take for us to put on a bi-monthly series workshop at the Innovation Barn? Right? So you were concise. You said exactly what you wanted. You were curious about it. And then she came back to us and she was like, oh, well, if you're going to do a series of them, like we got to talk because that's obviously going to be more affordable than just doing an individual. And then she told us about the rooms and then you and I like, well, this is the perfect way that we want to get ingrained in the Charlotte community, because for us doing that, that's 2 hours a month. That's consistency, right? 2 hours a month for us to serve the nonprofits in the Charlotte area at no cost, where we want to go and meet people. We want to give back. We want to get in front of them and let them know, hey, just like on our podcast, we're humans, right? We're doing human work, right? So we talked about in that statement that you had, there was the curiosity, right? How can we partner? How can we get together? How can we promote both, right? By putting it in there. Amy talked about how their coffee shop takes individuals that are houseless and gives them work and then sets them up and gives them all the resources to move forward in their life, right? And change the trajectory of their life at that point. We talked about the consistency of doing that bi-monthly, doing that twice a month, because we think that would be a really great idea. Now let's talk about consideration, right? Consideration is a really human thing, right? Considering the emotions of others, considering the background. In my sociology undergrad, I always think of, being able to consider the social structures that people come from, right? And how that affects down to the details of their decisions for anything that they do, right? In our work, I want to pass it to you in a second. I want to ask the people listening, how are you considering and how are you being aware of the people, your employees, right? Of how you act around them, of how you create consistency and curiosity. How do you create the culture that includes that? And then how do you also carry that over to your donors or the people that you serve, right? We always talk about board members. You want board members to be curious, but how can they be curious if you only bring it up one time? That makes them curious, right? You got to be consistent with that. Kyle, I want to pass it over to you on consideration. How should these leaders be considerate of the work that they're doing, the people that report to them, and the communities that they serve?
Dan, I love these conversations because you open up such phenomenal questions and allow us to really dive deeper into an answer, right? So anybody listening, I need you to follow along for a second. Dan and I, at the beginning of this conversation, introduced the Contagious Culture Conference. It's been going on. We've been talking about it online. It's a simple 2-day event. It's going to be amazing. And we want you to be there, right? But we introduced this idea because we wanted to be able to create an ecosystem of executive leaders, of university students, funders, like all of the people in the social impact space, and be able to create an ecosystem in person as well as online so that we can be able to improve or increase or expand access. Okay. With that, we recognize that we're going to need one thing to be able to pull this off: people. We're going to need people. We're going to need people to donate or sponsor. We're going to need people to purchase tickets. We're going to need people to be speakers and facilitators. We're going to need people. And through this, though, Dan was like, Kyle, there's this woman that if we're wanting to continue to build relationships in Charlotte, and we're wanting to continue to expand our reach, if we're wanting to be able to really get deep into building spaces in the city that we are in, then there's this person that we need to connect with. And he trusted me to be able to reach out. We had a preliminary conversation. In that conversation, it was all jokes and giggles. It was more of a vibe. We were getting to know each other, connecting, all of these different things. We were what? We were curious. We were curious. There it is. That's C number one. Mm-hmm. Then we followed up wanting to get her on our podcast. Dan and I did a phenomenal job asking questions, going back and forth. We asked story, profession, story, profession, story, profession. And that was the consideration piece. We wanted to be able to honor time, give her time back, and then went into the consistency piece. We wanted to partner with this individual. We didn't ask for money. We didn't ask for a connection. We didn't ask for any of that. We asked for space to continue to do this deep work moving forward. We asked for reach. We asked for location, which then was presented after the call. As you think about this live, real life sales funnel, we invited her in to our world, our ethos, our ecosystem. We accepted her invitation into her ethos and her ecosystem, where we'll be attending an in-person event that they're having at the end of this week. And then we identified a way to be able to make a mutually beneficial relationship where we're not just getting from you, we're also giving to you, your audience, as well as your people. And then through this relationship of consistency, if we're doing biweekly or monthly nonprofit meetups and we're sewing and then they're benefiting and all of these things happen, we continue to advance their mission. We continue to be able to be a partner in what they're contributing. But then what happens? We build our brand. We continue to expand our reach. We continue to build deeper relationships in the community. Now, what happens as we get closer to the conference? If we need donors, if we need sponsors, if we need players, if we need people, attendees, volunteers, all of these different things. For the last 4 or 5 months, we've been partnering with this organization. Anybody listening? The challenge is that you don't know what you want. You don't know your ask. You don't know how you're partnering with people. You're not clear. You're not consistent. And then you can't be considerate of your need because you have no idea what you're even doing. You're thinking that I just want more money. I need more money and we need bigger budget, but you don't need budget. You need consistency. You need clarity. You need to get clear on your ask before you build partnerships so that when you're talking to people, the people that you're on the phones, virtual meetings, coffee chats with are consistent to the vision and the mission that you're trying to push forward. And then at that point, you need to do your research. You need to identify, all right, well, this person that I'm on the phone with, not how can they help me, but how can you solve their challenges? And then at that point, you position your ask in the midst of helping them solve theirs. Dan, what you got?
Kyle, I always tell people in the work that we do in the nonprofit space and in general, we need to be thoughtful, effective, and efficient, right? That's always the goal. But the mindset is to humanize the work that we do, because we don't want people to see us and think, oh, here they come. They're coming to ask me for money, right? We don't want that. That's not, we need to humanize our work. We need to lead with our character and our authentic self and then end with our role, because that's how we create trust.
That's
Now,
good.
with that, everything you mentioned, Kyle, it comes down to two things, right? And this isn't a process, this isn't a system, this is a mindset, right? Everyone listening to this should always be intentional and thoughtful about everything they do, every decision they make, every conversation that they have. Kyle and I have that conversation often. We've been having that conversation lately about how do we have intentional conversations? How do we qualify people that we want to talk to make sure that we're being intentional and thoughtful about our own time, right? Even if other people want to speak with us, what does that look like?
Yep.
And it's so important that every decision you make and everything you do, nonprofit, leadership, whatever it may be, you are intentional about the decisions you make and you are thoughtful about how it's going to affect you and how it's going to affect them.
Agreed. What are things how do you build that muscle of intentionality and thoughtfulness? Like what can we do, Dan?
I really think it ties into authenticity. When we're authentically ourselves, we are following the values of who we are, right? When we are following the values of who we are, we're displaying high character traits that are related to us, right? And when we're that authentic self, we're following those high character traits, we're following our values, right? Every decision that we make is going to be intentional and connected to those values because that's what's driving us.
Agreed.
Right. And then also, if you're in this line of work, if you're doing this type of thing and you're being your authentic self, you're thinking about everything that you do in a way that is special to you, it's going to be thoughtful because you're connecting to those values, you're connecting to those high character traits. Again, I'm going to pull out the sociological hat and put that on here, is we are a product of our social structures, right? We are imperfect beings. But as leaders, it's not about being a perfect being. This is where the intention and thoughtfulness come in. It's about understanding that you are imperfect and that's okay.
That's good.
And that if you mess up, name it.
Yeah.
Name it. That's being intentional and thoughtful too. When you don't name that, you don't gain trust. And if you're not gaining trust, then what are you doing in life? Do you want to have an ecosystem that lacks intention and thoughtfulness and trust? That's not how you build.
That's good.
And that comes back to everything we talk about, right? As systems, processes, creativity, building special things.
Anybody listening, how can you ask better questions this week to be genuinely curious about your people that you are serving, people that you're partnering with, and organizations that you want to continue to collaborate with? Now, what does this look like, Kyle? This looks like, what is your birthday? What is your kids' names? What is your favorite restaurant? What is this? What is that? Where are you from? The first time that Dan and I connected, I knew a specific book that I felt like would help him in his specific journey. But then also I knew that he went to UNC Charlotte and he had a son. Now, I got a gift that was 2 times too big, but hey, he'll have to grow into it.
He'll grow into it.
He'll grow
He
into
needs
it.
clothes like that.
But when you think about, what do you really know about the people that you're engaging with? And it's those small acts of kindness that go further than all of the other tactics that we're trying to do. Sending somebody a birthday email is probably much, much more important and powerful than all of these tactics that we learn in the nonprofit space. Just being able to check on someone after their son or daughter gets out of the hospital is much more powerful than something else. So we have to be curious. Number 2 is, what can I do to consider my team, my partners, my stakeholders, my boards, my employees this week? But then also, what can I do to consider my family this week? And recognize that these late nights, early mornings is not helping you be the best leader that you can be. And then number 3, where can you be a little bit more consistent this week? In your outreach, in your follow-up, in your processes, in your systems, and how you're showing up. And when we master those 3 steps, it allows us to accelerate our leadership. It allows us to be more intentional. It allows us to be more thoughtful. And it allows us to lead with authenticity. And that, my friend, is the catalyst to success within our organizations. Dan, what are your thoughts?
I got nothing. That was great. that was you finishing it up, Kyle. I thought that was a great close.
One of the questions that we want to leave you with: what culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. It's another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast, the Contagious Culture Podcast. And we really want you to go make your culture worth catching. If this episode resonated with you, go like it, subscribe it, share it with somebody in your world. And we want you to subscribe on all platforms: Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, all of the platforms. But before that, we'll see you at the Contagious Culture Conference, October 15th and 16th. We'll see you guys next time.